Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Log Cabin Stitcher. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my sewing room. You can follow me on Instagram at Bonnie Log Cabin Stitcher. Now, this is a little bit different of an angle than I usually do for my floss tube videos. This one is going to be a quilting video, and it's going to be showcasing that quilt in the background, which I will wait till the very end to share about. So if you really just want to see that one, I know you can kind of slide and get to where I'm really going to be pointing to that one and talking about that. I really got into paper piecing in the last couple weeks because I was watching my friend Celeste from Celeste Creates, and she had a quilty tube video, and she was talking about her favorite designer, Lori Holt, and the quilts that she had made with Lori Holt fabrics and patterns. And one of them was paper piecing blocks that I actually had. And so I got those out and I got so inspired. And I had a weekend of just simply quilting, which is amazing because when I got into floss tube in August, that's where I got into cross stitching, and my first thought was that I was not going to get back into cross stitching because I had given that up just because there's so many other stitching things that I wanted to do. So I had kind of stopped cross stitching 20 years ago, and then picked up embroidery, and then picked up quilting, and then picked up different things along the way, even though I had done all of those when I was younger. So primarily I was just going to do quilting until I got my first cross stitch pattern. And so for September through last month of, well, about halfway through March, all I really was doing was cross stitching, and I loved it. But I'm in my sewing room full of quilts, unfinished quilts, patterns, fabric, and I was longing to get back into those, but I tend to get really saturated in one thing or another. But now I'm just going to pick things up as I feel like that and just move forward and do that. So this is my, this is what I have been into, and I've also been very into organizing. I've been watching different studio tours, and also different organizational videos, and I have a playlist that I'm going to start to put some of the ones that really inspired me. And one of them was Karen Brown's Just Get It Done, and she was just sharing some tips that really helped me on more logical ways of organizing. So I'm almost done with organizing my sewing room, and somehow I will do a tour and share those things with you. But I wanted to just really show you, I am not at all going to be showing you how to paper piece, but I did, because paper piecing and foundation piecing is kind of opposite of regular quilt piecing. So Lori Holt's videos, if you go on her YouTube channel, she has a video on how to do the blocks. So let's just share with you. I have a lot of boxes stacked in front of me, and I need to get this video done so that I can put these things away and move forward, but I have stacks here, so hopefully we don't have a crazy crash going on. But the first thing I want to share with you, I picked these up at an awesome trip down to Primitive Gatherings, Lisa Bonjean's shop down in Murrieta. I always get Murrieta and Menifee confused, but anyway, Primitive Gatherings, I just picked these up. You can get them on Fat Quarter Shop. And it's just very fun. I got the 6-inch block, so there's a 6-inch and a 12-inch. So I put some together. I put quite a few of them together, so it took 2 days. And one thing that was really fun about putting these blocks together is that I had to learn again how to do the paper piecing, and it makes for very precise blocks as long as you don't try to go too small. I did find one that I actually had missed because the piece was too small, because I really used scraps for these, which is perfect. And I realized as I was looking, I cut one short, so I just had to unstitch it and I will put it back together. But I have a whole closet and dresser full of fabrics that either I have collected or been given or inherited lots of fabric. And I have it very organized and it's fun, but I just thought I really just want to use bits and pieces and scraps. And so I had a whole large box of scraps that were all Civil War type fabrics. And I have also just purchased, sometimes you can go and just purchase scraps. So I had gone to a quilt store, several different ones, and I had just purchased scraps of Civil War type fabrics. And so that's a really neat way. If you're really scrappy, that's a really fun way, very inexpensive to get scraps. I had a large box. And then my sister is a quilter and was part of a scrapathon group. And whenever they would do a group, they would share fabrics, and it was Civil War primarily. And when she was done, she would just give me all her, a Ziploc bag of her leftovers. So I had a lot of them. And so it was very fun. But that had been growing and growing. I thought, let's just do something with it. So I literally dumped that box on my quilt table here, and it was a huge pile. And I would just pull, and I kind of separated lights and darks, because as I was doing it, you're doing lights and darks. And so I just had one side was lights, one side was darks, and I would just pull. So of course the smaller pieces could go towards the center, larger pieces were used around the edge. So it was amazing. And at that end of the second day, when I did my blocks, that pile had reduced by half. So I was just looking at a Joe Morton quilt book this morning, and she was saying if you have treasured fabrics, the best place to store them is in a quilt. So it was really fun just to use other people's fabrics and mine, and that's why I love scrappy quilts. So these were just a bunch of blocks that I made. But the funny thing was, I'm so used to the log cabin blocks that start with a dark in the center, and I love using red in the center, because traditionally, that from what I heard, traditionally log cabin blocks, the center is for the hearth of the home, and if it was brick, it would be red. So I do like using red in the center. So as I was looking at this and then looking closer at how Lori had designed these to be, I realized, oh, that is not a dark center, that's a light center. So I had 6 of them done this way. And I showed Celeste, and she said, oh, those are beautiful. And then I was showing my husband, he said, those are really cool. But I wanted to see, because I had not done, I have really not done pineapple blocks. I have a couple things started, but usually the dark runs all the way through here. So Lori has it where it's a light there and a light on the edge, which I know would create its own design. I thought I want to give that a try. So I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had no grand plan, but I ended up deciding to do a lot of blocks with the light in the center and continue with that light on the edge. And I have it laid out, and I will put that together. But what it came up with was I have 6 blocks of these and then a block of this one all around the edge. And I was just thinking, oh, instead of like a chocolate, because I think in candy and chocolate, instead of a chocolate covered cherry, because really it shows up a lot of lights, it's like a white chocolate covered cherry. So I don't like white chocolate as much as dark chocolate, because I have never had chocolate that is too rich. Never in my life. No cake, no ice cream, no frosting has ever been too rich for me out of chocolate. So I love dark chocolate. So those are my blocks, and hopefully I will get those put together soon. But there are several different ones that you can purchase in this It's So Emma line. So now we can put that away. But as I was having so much fun with the paper piecing, because at first it was awkward because I hadn't done it for about a year. I haven't really quilted, sewn quilting. I've been hand quilting, but I haven't really sewn quilting for about 6 months. So getting back into that and then doing something opposite, it was kind of awkward at first. I guess like it would be for normal people if you could ride a bike. I really can't ride a bike. I have lots of issues, but that's one of them. So it was just kind of awkward, and it went slower, and I had to unstitch some things. The one trick, because this is all going to be about paper piecing, the one trick you really, really want to use, if you're really using paper that you will be removing, I will show you where I have one that's fabric that you do not remove. You want to make that stitch length smaller. And I found, Celeste and I were talking about this because I found, and it is good, she was suggesting you leave the paper on it until you actually piece all those blocks together because you have a lot of biases. So I've done this with log cabin blocks, and those are not done on the bias, and they were fine to remove. But when you are actually using this, I use my add a quarter rulers. I'm looking and the rulers are across the table. I do use my add a quarter rulers. I have a 6-inch and a 12-inch. You're folding this paper. So it ends up being very easy to it's perforated because of the stitch, and then it will be very easy to tear off because it is not regular copy paper. I have done some with regular copy paper in the past because it was inexpensive, but it did make it harder to remove, which can stretch the fabric. So I have an order coming in from Fat Porter Quilt Shop, and I ordered a lot of Kim Deal fabrics. I needed lights. I organized my fabric, and I have quite a few pieces, like half-yard pieces of Kim Deal mediums and darks, but I didn't have a lot of lights, and they were on sale. I don't know if they still are, for $8.60 a yard for Kim Deal light fabrics. Those are hard to come by. So I ordered quite a few of them, and I will have those to share with you next time because I have quite a few quilts planned to use those in. So since I was just kind of thinking, oh, I'm having so much fun paper piecing, and I got into the groove. So, that's what I was going to share as well. When I was first doing them, I did like one block for the first time around just to get it going. And then the next time around, I did 2 blocks, which kind of made it speed up the process. Then I did 3 blocks. And then I think I stayed doing 4 at a time was the most that I did. And it does really help. And on some, you can mark, you can kind of color code, because this one was easy for me to stay color coded. But there's another one that I'm going to be doing, and I definitely will need to be color coding it. So as I was looking through things that I had, I thought, oh, what other paper piece projects do I have? And there was one that that I got from my friend Judith in Colorado, and she mailed it to me. So I called Judith this morning and I said, can I share on my channel a picture of both of us and a picture of you and your mom? And she said, yeah, go ahead and share it. So I had shared on the Floss Tube video that I did yesterday about my friendship with Judith and my mom's friendship with Judith. So Judith and her husband were very good friends of my mom and dad, and they both liked adventuring. My dad and her husband are, outdoorsmen, and did a lot of fly fishing, fly tying, a lot of neat things together. And then my mom and Judith were quilters, and they were just like 2 peas in a pod. And so they did a lot of things together, either going to retreats, just mom and Judith and their quilt friends, or they would do like little mini vacations and do things, spend time together, because they lived in the same city for a while. And then Dick and Judith moved away for a while out of state, and that's when my mom was diagnosed with dementia, and just the process of her aging and then eventually dying with dementia. Judith was out of state at that time, and then she moved back. So when I went back to visit my dad last October in 2019, I was at church, and I had always heard stories. My mom would always tell stories about Judith, and Judith and her did this and that and that. So I knew Judith through my mom's stories, and Judith was younger than my mom. So anyway, we're in church, and this woman comes up to me and said, you're probably not going to know me, but I was your mom's friend. I'm Judith. It's like, oh my gosh, I know you, Judith. So we had never met, but she had heard about me, I had heard about her, and oh my goodness. So we ended up getting together for a coffee morning while I was out there, because they had moved very close to my father. So we spent a lot of time together, and then I got to see her quilting paradise, that I call it, which is her studio. That was a converted garage, and we spent a lot of time together, and we were just talking quilty stuff and talking about stories of my mom. And then she gave me, and I'm really going to work hard not to get teary, because if I get teary, I'm just not going to stop. So usually when I had been up there after my mom's death, eventually I worked where I was brave enough to go and spend time. My mom and dad's gravesite is at a beautiful place in Colorado, and it's on this mesa, and you see the whole city laid out before you. And if you go up at sunset, it's amazing. So it was a beautiful place to go to, but at first it was very hard to face that date, the end date on my mom's gravestone. So I had to work up to that. And I know she is no longer there. Her body has been placed there, but her spirit, her soul is in heaven with her Lord and Savior. But it would help me just to feel like I could go up there and I would talk to her, and, you know, and it was a place of beauty, but it was more remembering her death. And so when I got to meet Judith, that one trip that I got to meet Judith, I didn't have the longing to go up there, and I would generally go up there alone unless I took one of my kids or my husband, and it was like a shared grief, and it was just easier for me to go up there alone. But anyway, that was the first trip that I hadn't longed or felt the need to go up to my mom's gravesite, because I was remembering and being saturated with stories of her life and silly, fun, wonderful things. So I don't print out pictures. So this was the time, and I went to do a color picture of Judith and I, and it didn't turn out very well. So we're just going to do a black and white. I just did it on the printer. So this is my mom and Judith. So that's Judith and my mom, and that was back, is no date on here. So not even going to guess at how long ago that was, but that was my mom and Judith just being silly. They had all gone out to a restaurant. Her mom and dad and Judith and her husband. And then this is us. So this was the trip that I got to meet Judith. So that was 2019, me and Judith. I no longer, this was before I let my hair go gray, so it would be lighter now. But mom and I look very much alike. And so there is a story of mom and Judith and me and Judith. And I was even telling Judith when I was talking to her this morning, the quilt that I'm going to share about this, your name is written in there, because they shared ideas and quilt patterns and fabrics and everything. So Judith is like all over my mom's stuff. So in all that, when I was going through Judith's stuff, we were talking about paper piecing, and I was borrowing, like when I would go to sleep at my dad's in the spare room, and I liked to have quilt stuff to look at. So I would just borrow a chunk of, Judith had a wonderful bookshelf of quilt books. So I would say, oh, can I borrow these today? Because I saw her almost every day, because she was just a couple blocks away. So I would borrow a chunk. And I was looking at a pattern, and so I had kind of drawn it out, but I didn't have all the information on it. So I just called Judith and I said, do you remember what this is from? I sent her a little picture of my drawing, and she said, oh yeah, and I'll give it to you, because you know, it was where you pull out the patterns from a magazine of what you're going to use, and then just pass on the magazine or throw it away so you don't have so much stuff. So this is the pattern. So this is called a Wonky pineapple. And so I just got this in the mail the other day from Judith. And so this will be just another fun one. This is old. So this is McCall's Quilting, February 2004. But I know when I'm sharing lots of older, because most of the many of the fabrics and many of the quilt pattern books and things that I have are collected from a long time ago. So these are maybe not available, but if you just search Wonky pineapple paper, it's hard to say, Wonky pineapple paper piece patterns, things will come up on Pinterest, and I like the search. So I have a video that I did on my sewing room, the other wall. I think that was quilting number 7. It was the joy of the hunt. And so I would hunt something down. So I didn't have to hunt. I just called Judith and she sent it to me. I will probably change the center. I like that. But I'll probably change up more of it to make it more my style. But that was fun. So that's me and Judith and Mom and Judith. Then as I was playing with that paper piece, I wanted to see if I could use, what are these called? Mini charms. I wanted to see, because I was looking at that and I thought, oh, surely that will fit. Well, it is really deceiving because you need a bigger piece of fabric, a wider, or I guess a longer and wider piece of fabric than what you actually see here. So I was just playing around with it, and I thought, well, how far can I go? So obviously I didn't get very far, but I thought, well, what can I do with this? So it's not going to be a block. It's actually going to be a little mug rug. And I have one that's a circle. Hang on a second and I'll show it to you. I have one that I just made with circles, and it's just concentric circles, and it's one of my favorite coasters. So that's what I'm going to do with this. So it's funny when you can walk around, and I was thinking, how big of a circle do I need to do? And I just walked around the house and I went and looked at the different lids that I have, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'll probably make a template out of this, out of the plastic that I have, so that I can center it and get it done appropriately. But that's just sitting there waiting to be done. So this part that is cut off won't show, but I did need this piece here to have this part. So that's why I really need to have it in clear plastic so that I can see. But that was fun. But obviously, because it does say, Lori Holt did say that it is best for honey buns, which are 1.5 inch strips. So jelly rolls are 2.5 inch strips. Honey buns are 1.5. So it is best for, because of the size, it is really best for charm packs, which are 5 inch squares. But I just wanted to test and see how that would be. So this is Susanna's Scraps from Betsy Chichian. I never know how to say her name. Chichunian, whatever. That's her. So I have a lot of, this is how I do Scrappy, just little bits and pieces. This was the one that I had to undo because I didn't get that edge. There was some missed edges, so I'm going to redo those. So when I learned how to paper piece, and let's see if I can do this without tears because I want to remember joy. Mom taught me how to paper piece, and I remember the time still. I was sitting in her sewing room and she was just explaining it to me. And she had this that she used to explain it to me, and then she gave it to me. So I have notes. We were talking about some books and different things. I needed to buy a rotary cutting mat by June Taylor, and I have those, and I love those. I have those in different sizes. She was talking to me about some quilt books of somebody that she followed. But so these are actually just notes, and this is how my mom showed me. I don't know if this is still available anymore. You can see it has patterns in there, and I have made quite a few things with this. I was looking for this pattern actually. So I don't know if this is still available, but this is where it's from. But all that being said, there are many, many ways to learn paper piecing now. You can just YouTube it. So Lori Holt had a great one. Now there is a Doan. Oh, it's my mind is escaping me. I got some news this morning right before I went to push record that I need to digest. And so I'm a little bit thrown off, but I wanted so much to get this video done because I've been putting them off. But that's where I am. I just need to digest this news that I received and move forward. So Carol Doak. That's okay. There we go. So that's why my mind is a little more scattered than normal. Carol Doak, D-O-A-K. So it's Carol with a C, C-A-R-O-L, D-O-A-K. Amazing master paper piecing. And so that's who my mom recommended me to get some information from. So also from Fat Quarter Shop, because this pattern here, they give you just the block. It was in a magazine. You just get the block and then you print it out. So I want to use not regular copy paper because, like I said, I did that once, not going to do it again. But Carol Doak on Fat Quarter Shop has like 100 sheets, and it's like, I don't know, $13, $14 for 100 sheets of paper that you can put in the copy machine and print it out. So I have those coming. So so that's the story on that. What else is in? Because we're just going to look through whatever I have in here. So as I was thinking about what paper piecing, I have a whole notebook that I need to put together on paper piecing because I have things kind of all over the place. Judith again gave me this. So this was from a magazine, and she gave this to me because she had made this, but this one is American Patchwork and Quilting, April 1999. And what is that one called? That one's called Scrap Apple. So she gave me this so I could make one, but these are very small. Those are very small, so you can make them in all different sizes, but now I have that pattern. And then this was another one that I had, And I don't want to take them out of here because this is going to be already a long video. This is another way of just laying things out differently. That one is from Q&M. My sister gave these to me. Quilters News magazine, I think it was, December 2001. And then I inherited a lot of my mom's supplies. So I actually have these. This is just a different kind of, it's not fusible, but it's almost like an interfacing type of material. And this is just paper piecing material. And I think I have 2 bags of this that again you can put in the copier. And I did do a little test on how easy it is to rip. So that's how you do it. So I think I have 2 bags of this, or 2 packages of this that I will use up as well. So that's one box. Let me put the stuff in and move it so I don't have this big, a big fallout. Okay, so now there is another way of doing foundation paper piecing, which that one is. That one is this block. And I'm going to share more about that at the end, but I just wanted to show you I inherited a lot from my mom, a lot of this. So this is on fabric, and it is by Benartex, B-E-N-A-R-T-E-X. So this one is an uneven log cabin, because you can see these are narrow and those are wide. That's how you get the scalloped, the beautiful scalloped edge, which is what really, I think that's what makes that one so outstanding. So I will share about that and that one coming up, but just to introduce the fact to you that that's how that one is done. And there are a lot of different fabric options. When I got my mom's stash, she had quite a few yards. It was at the time where you could buy it by the yard, and she had quite a few yards. And this is another one that is prairie braid. So, and you can see I did not sew on the lines here, and there was a reason. When I went to visit Judith in March 2020, gosh, things changed in March 2020. Well, I was out in Colorado when those things changed, and I wasn't really paying attention to it much because I was spending time with my dad and sewing with Judith, and we weren't watching the news. But I did this, and she was showing me, she had been to a class with Lynn Graves, who had a technique of, instead of working from the back of the fabric, you worked from the front. And if it's confusing, just remember this isn't going to be a tutorial on how to do it, but it's just introducing you to this. So you worked from the front. And so she had to really show me how to do that. And when I got home, I finished these panels. This is my mom's, and I can't remember now. I've done quite a few videos, so I can't remember if I have shared the story on this one. This is going to be flowering favorites. So instead of just like that, this is what I'm going to be doing. So I wanted to use those panels, and I have, so this is still in progress, but I have, oops, there we go. I have these. So, and that goes around the edge. So this is from Flowering Favorites by Piece of Cake Designs. And I want to do several from this. So which is this one? Nope, nope, nope. Goodness, where are you? I had it marked. Here we go. This one is Flowering Vines. So that's that. I ended up getting this used. So I found this book used. It's been out for a while. And so I think if you guys are interested, I'm not going to go through, but you can see there's a lot of great patterns in this book. So that is again, I'm scatterbrained, but this one is from that. But when I knew I was going to be going out in March to see my dad, and I was going to be there for a week, I called Judith and I said, hey, I've got an idea. So I had, my mom loved 30s fabrics. It's not my favorite. They're bright, which is great. They're vintage, which is great. I just like the darker stuff. And so I had this big box, and my sister had a lot already. So that's why I got the box, that box of 30s fabrics, when my sister and I divided up the fabrics. And I knew Judith loved, because when I got to see a tour of her house, I knew she had a lot of 30s. And so I was talking to her about it. I said, hey, would you like to do a project together when I come out? I've got a bunch of these panels, and I've got a ton of 30s fabric that I would love to share with you, because I didn't want them to get unused. And she said, yeah, I love the 30s. And actually we were together often when your mom bought those fabrics. So that's why it was so special. I divided my stash in half. So we worked on these together, and Judith made some and turned it into another type of a quilt, and I did these and did the applique. It was so fun. And then I said, Judith, I'm going to leave this with you overnight. Divide the box up as you want and do what, because Judith is very generous. She makes quilts and gives them away. But these are just, it is fun. It is fun, and it's going to be treasured because these were fabrics that my mom collected, and Judith and my mom and my sisters. So we'll just show you some of them. They are bright and fun and cheerful. So it's a little harder for me to blend the colors to work with them because it's not generally the colors that I would use. So it takes a little bit more work to do those. But they are fun, and I do like stitching. And that's where I first used my Aurifil threads. And I took that box. I've shared about my threads before. My Aurifil threads that I used for hand applique, and I took them on that trip because I just purchased them. And I thought, oh, these stitch like butter. So that's the story on that, and Judith, and my mom, and me. Then when the next trip that I took out was in June, and I brought another project, but I wasn't there in Colorado for as long, and so Judith and I didn't have as much stitching time, but I just wanted to bring something just to do some stitching. And this time I didn't take my machine, I used her machine, and I just played around. And so what I took with me were these were from Mom as well. So of course Judith and Mom were in the same guild, they went to the same retreats, they did a lot of the same things together. And Lynn Graves, because she stitches from the front of it, I said, Judith, I'm going to need some help with this. This is as far as I got. But Judith was able to explain to me the process of doing it, stitching from the front. It is a little bit different, and after I did the way that I just did last week, and this one looks a little complicated, but Judith also gave me the 1/4 inch foot, because she actually said she doesn't need to use this foot. So this is called the little foot. And you can find them. It's a thing that was around probably 25 years ago. But there is a lot. So Lynn Graves, if you're interested, there's a lot of different things. So I just went, and because I was going to buy the foot, and I was telling Judith, she said, oh no, take mine. So that's just something else. And I have all of these fabrics. So I have Primitive Gathering fabrics and Joe Morton. And so I've got just these all together, and that's why I really want to get things done, because I have a lot of fabrics. I have a whole cupboard of fabrics that are put together in plastic boxes with the project that I'm working on. So that's another Judith and me and Mom quilt. So it's the three of us. And okay, so good. One more box shared. I'm going to share with you now a little bit of the stash that I collected. So in my floss tube that I just did, I think it was number 19, I kind of shared about, I overspent because I used what I'm supposed to have as, or I have self-imposed as my limit on spending. I had spent that on cross stitch like in the first week of March. And then when I got back into quilting, I spent that money again. So I have a big order coming in from Fat Porter Shop. And then I also have what I ordered from Missouri Star. I love this. So they give you a little note. So Missouri Star, I purchased two. I am liking the pre-cuts because I have a lot, because I love scrappy, and I already have chunks of fabric, even though most of them are maybe half a yard or a yard. I don't have big pieces of fabric. I'm just wanting smaller things, but bigger than a charm pack. So this is a layer cake. This is a 10-inch square, and you can buy, I have 2 sets. So, but the hard thing is when you're shopping and you're not looking at it and you're just looking on the website. I like Janet Nesbitt, and I just recently got interested. She and her sister were Buggy Barn. Now she's One Sister is the name of the company, and it's Janet Nesbitt. And this one is called Scrap Happy. So when I was looking at the little pieces, it looked more like her other ones that I had purchased recently. And then when I got it, all that to say, if I really saw this in person, I don't think I would have purchased it. Not that it's not gorgeous, it's just not, this is more modern, I think, than I was wanting. So I wanted something more whimsical, and this is neat, beautiful colors. And I think especially if you're doing a quilt of valor or patriotic, but it is, they're beautiful, but the blue is brighter than I would be using. These are more like my style. This is more what I thought it would be, like that and that and that. But they're fun. Let me see if I can do this. This is like not, but small pieces, that might be more interesting. So as I was looking at it, I thought, but this is what I love. So I love that one. And that's this one. So sometimes you get two of one piece. It just depends. It's a whole line of fabric. I catch myself. I keep trying to talk fast because the video is just going longer, but let's just be who we are. Okay, so you can see this would definitely be something that I would like to use in that quilt. And then I love that blue as well. So I have separated my fabrics as I'm organizing more, and I have Kim Deal and Janet Nesbitt now, and I have 2 boxes. I have their fabrics separated because I generally don't quilt with that purple, even though I'm kind of wearing it right now. Generally don't quilt with that blue, yet I have some that I do want to do in those. So they're beautiful, but again, like I said, I don't usually do text, but that may be really fun. It's going to be an opportunity for me to experiment and play. So that was a box, or that was in my box. Look at, now they're kind of all folded like those. I don't know, when I was young, they had those tissue paper flowers. It just had that flash in my mind of tissue paper flowers that I made one time when I was a kid. Okay, so that was Scrap Happy. This one definitely. I love Kim Deals, but you know what? Whenever there's a designer, it's not, you don't have to love every single thing that they make. I love her stuff. This one is a newer one, Idaho Prairie Star. So Shanda, this, I think of you when I think of this with quilting in Idaho, Shanda. So I am going to be doing a red quilt, and I do love reds. So these are my style. Some are a little brighter than I would use, but there is a dominant red quilt that I will be doing, and so some of the brighters and darkers will actually give it a little bit of a pop. So this one is wonderful. The other thing is, when there's newer fabric lines out and you want to go back and purchase them later, oftentimes they're gone, and I like the value, where I think this was like $36. So I got a lot of fabrics, and when you get a 10 by 10, you have a lot of opportunities. So I can do applique, I could do logs for a log cabin, I could do bigger pieces from these. So instead of, sometimes, you know, all I want to spend the money on is a charm pack or sometimes a mini. But when I can, I like the bigger because it gives me more options. So where was I throwing that? So that's fun. And then this, I think, is one of my favorite Kim Deal lights. So this I got from Missouri Star. I got that one, a yard piece. I got this one, a yard piece, and these. So I have a quilt that I did with butter churn or butter basics, and it was the charm pack. And then I loved it so much, I bought a layer cake, and now I love that butter, whatever it is, it's all of her creams and butter colors, so yellow. So now I'm buying yard pieces of that because I do find that I use those for any quilt that I work on. Kim Deal's lights translate nicely, both the whimsical and the more serious, like the Civil War fabrics. Hers translate across there. Then as I've been organizing, I've been finding some things, and I found these. So I found these, and I thought, oh, I remember making them now, but I need to find the pattern that this came from. When I shared my, hang on. When I shared this is one of the project bags that I made from a very old project that I had made. See, this is the smaller one. I had someone ask me what pattern this came from. At the time, I didn't know. Now I know. But the pattern is hard to find. So if you were the one that asked me, could you ask me again? Could you comment? Because I could not find that comment. And since you were the first one to ask, I would love to be able to share that with you. Anyway, so these are some pieces that I found. So now I'm really trying to organize because I want to keep these things together in a more organized fashion so that when I have extra things, I can easily incorporate that into different things. I can see behind me here, I'm trying to keep, like I have 2.5-inch pieces. I have 1.5-inch pieces. I have my circles that I'm working on. I'm doing a Kim Deal quilt with scraps that are reminiscent of that coaster that I just showed you. Those are all together because those are all just pieces. So I'm really trying to stay more organized. Even so much that I am using, oh, there went a little fall. Even so much that I'm really trying to use, I got this tray at Hobby Lobby, and I think I shared this before, but most of the trays that are available are bright and shiny and cheerful. And not that I don't want to be cheerful, but I do like the prim and the darker stuff. So I'm really trying to stay organized and use these trays. And that was my light box. I do not want to break that. I keep my light box in that project bag. The other thing that I'm doing as I'm stash gathering and enjoying my stash, and I kind of, in my Floss Tube 19, I really shared about the stash and the joy and the value of the stash. So if you want to hear about that, check that one out. But I do love displaying my stash. And I have a place that I keep a lot of my pre-cuts so that I can just enjoy looking at them. This was a Joe Morton fat quarter collection. So as I choose how much I want to spend on something, the bigger that you buy. So the fat quarter bundle, of course, is going to be more expensive than the layer cake or the jelly rolls. But I love Joe Morton, and so these I will use for all different types of things. But I love also when you buy a bundle, usually that collection, whether someone curated that bundle and put it together, or it is a collection, generally they go together well. So I was putting together a project. These were all from the same fat quarter bundle, and then I just pulled this from my stash. So you can see how fun it is to play and how much I enjoy that. In talking about the stash and the love of the stash, there was something that I was talking about in that Floss Tube video, and I said I will read that whole article on my quilting video. So I'm going to read this article, and it's just talking about what a stash means to you. It is not just a gathering of supplies that you have not used. It's more than that. So I'm going to actually read this. And another thing from Judith. Judith shared, we were talking about stash, and she said, oh, let me give you this. I had this copy from a magazine. So this is from the Quilters Bee Digest. It's called A Quilter's Stash by Barbara Whatley, W-H-A-T-L-E-Y. This means a lot to me because this is what it portrays everything that I feel about my stash. Several years ago, I came to the conclusion that a stash is more than fabric stockpiled in totes, boxes, closets, and project folders. It is the most basic of building blocks in the foundation of our quilt making. We can have grand designs in our heads, penciled down on paper, or printed off from the computer. We can have all the latest gadgets, tools, and machines to sew on, but without the delightfully thrilling colors of our stash, we can accomplish nothing. Some of us have a grander stash and more prolific amount of building blocks. Others have just enough to get the job done, yet more fall somewhere in the middle. Our stash represents a part of who we are. It tells a story of what we liked or were drawn to in any given year or season, and sometimes how long we've been collecting. It tells what colors we like or avoid, apparently by the lack thereof, within the color schemes we collect. A stash that is color coordinated and neatly stacked makes a statement as revealing as those that are as haphazardly tossed into a pile or tote, or those separated by project specifics. I wonder what our children or grandchildren will hear these fabrics say about us. After all, most of us have more than we can use up in one lifetime. I'm fortunate enough to have more time with my stash and the creations that come out of it than many others. But I found that when life intrudes on the most wonderful of passions, love transformed into quilts, and there isn't enough time to think, let alone take a stitch or cut a block, then we quilters head to our amazing stash, be it large or small, throw open the doors, totes, boxes, and bags to feast our eyes on the rainbow of color. Our gaze falls upon this stash, so uniquely ours, with joy, remembering maybe when we found that single wonderful piece, or the one that came from someone who had no clue about your passion, but it was the perfect choice. Or that quilt shop or show where you just had to have that one over there. And the funny one from the swap, which still can make you smile. Our stash is often a place of refuge, not without challenge, yet free of intimidation that allows us to be comforted. We have stepped into another world where time slows down and the stuff of life cannot intrude. As the memories of where this or that one came from, or the reason for its existence in our stash comes to mind, a hand reaches out to touch, caress, and hold. From our fingertips to our worried bodies, that stresses of the days begin to fall away. Another snatch of color will draw our hand, and as you pull that one out, you find that it blends ever so nicely with the one already chosen. No sooner have you had time to admire their symphony of colors than another begs to be added to the ever-changing song. In no time at all, we seem to be surrounded by colors, sets, pairs, trios, and conglomerations. Ideas fly around so quickly we can barely snatch just one or two from flight to set firmly into process. Life eventually recalls us to another chore and needs as we gather up the rainbow and put it back into its special place, maybe leaving that set with the idea caught into its colors where we can ponder it as we go about the business of our family's needs and day-to-day routine that calls out for our touch. Feeling refreshed, relaxed, and empowered to tackle the next batch of curves life's warming up to toss our way, we close the door, totes, boxes, or bags, knowing that the rainbow will greet us again on another day to lift a heart grown heavy, comfort a weary mind, bring joy into our smile, and release the tension of a stress-filled day. Our stash is so much more than threads woven into cloth and colored with the shades and hues of the rainbow to us. Non-quilters often cannot comprehend this fascination with fabric, the colors and textures, and in some cases, sheer quantity. So from one fabric fondling, stash building, quilt maker to another, enjoy your stash and remember it has more than one purpose in the scheme of life, and guilt is technically not one of them. So this week, it really, I think about that article a lot, and it really has been neat as I've been organizing and pondering and having a special, sometimes have some Kleenex ready if you want, but sometimes very tender and hard memory attached to it that I want to continue to bring to beauty. That's why I'm saving that one to the end. So as I am loving scraps, and sometimes I prefer to work from my scraps than my full pieces, I thought, well, I have a lot of scraps. Let's organize them. And so because I had that weekend that I was working, my husband couldn't even get in the room. I had not only my quilt table filled, but I needed more. So I pulled out all my boxes and Ziploc bags, and amazing. And I had all these piles all over the floor. It was a big mess, and I thought, not a problem, because I'm going to organize it afterwards. So I made sure, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, really Monday morning, the weekend was over, and I thought, I've got to power through and finish these blocks so that I can then organize, because it does kind of make me crazy when I've got stuff all over the place. But when you work on a project, you need that. And so I was just trying to think, what is the organization that I want to use so that I will use these more? Because it is really nice to have scraps for me. So this is what I came up with. And this is why I'm glad it has not knocked over the camera yet. So this is some of my stash, but you can see these are stacked. This is I have found very space efficient. I have one old-fashioned closet. So not one of those big open closets, but just the kind I've showed where I have stuff in there. That's really that, and my dresser is where I want all my fabric unless it's in process. So I went from a box that was this big with this particular style of fabrics to this one. So more space efficient. And then I just separated. So I pulled all the Civil War type scraps, put them in here. Then I separated into colors. So, and this is not all of it, but you can, so I don't even need to label it. I can see what those colors are. Then I can pull this whole stack down, pull out what I need, put it back up, and I don't have it all over the place. Then I was talking to Celeste from Celeste Creates, and we were talking about, let me get a drink real quick. We were talking about organization because I had started that, I showed her the mess of my house or my room. And we were talking about it, and I said, I inherited a lot of these fabrics, and they're not necessarily ones that I want to use. And so Celeste was saying, because I love, when I watch her videos, I love looking at her background, and she has her fabric storage there. And her fabric stash and her storage. And we were talking about it, and I said, I love looking at your videos and trying to look at everything in those boxes and stacked up. And so she was saying that she goes through and gleans and does not feel bad about getting rid of some stuff and passing it on to different places. And so that's what I did. It was like, I felt the release, and I thought, yes, this is what I want to do. So I've got fabrics that I'm going to pass on to my friends' daughters who will just play with them. Then I've got some that I will take to my quilt guild when we get to meet again and have it on their free table. And then I have the stuff that I will use. And it felt so freeing. So Celeste, thank you. Then I have more. So I also have one big box that is like all cream scraps, cream and brown and yellows. That was a bigger one because I kept thinking, how can I do this where I will use it? So that is one big box. Then I have another big box that is all Kansas Troubles fabric scraps because I've made quite a few Kansas Trouble quilts. So that's its own. So those are my scraps, and that's how I have them. And then I have a basket. You'll see on my cupboard, I have 3 antique baskets. One of them has a lid so it stays clean, and that's where all my scraps, so that was also dumped out. But any new scraps, I open the lid, put the scraps in there. I don't worry about sorting them every time, and then I will have a big sort. So my room stays orderly and clean when I finish a project. So now is the time that we will share this quilt. So let's show you. So this is also how I do my storage in my cupboard here. So the cupboard that I usually have here, that when I show a video with the big wall behind me, and you will see my sister let me borrow her Valentine quilt. If you watched my last one where it has a Valentine quilt, it's called, I think, Quilting from My Heart. I show you my version of the Valentine quilt. I wanted to wait to the end in case I don't quite get that quilt, quite get everything turned the way it should. I have her Valentine quilt hanging on my wall so I could share that, because she said she knows I do these videos and Instagram, and I'll put it on Instagram. So she loaned me that. But usually when I'm doing a video with that in the background, you see my cupboard. Those are all my UFOs, almost all my UFOs in one area, and then the baskets on top. Well, I have one area, and then I can get 4 of these in. So these are my quilts in process. And this is for like a bigger chunk. So I have all different sizes of boxes. This is, so this center part, so that center part I got from this. And this was a book that I'm borrowing from my sister. So it's Pink Lemonade and Other Delights. And it is an older pattern. Of course, I'm not doing this, but see that? That's where you get that. So that is that. Then, look at that. I may or may not include, I have had plans of doing that for the border. I may just want to get it done because I could, my mom had planned, I will show her drawing, or actually I'll just show you right now because it's right here. Let me pop my glasses on for a moment. So this is where, if I get teary, it's just going to happen. But this was what I got from my mom. So this came with it. This is what she was planning, and it's fun because I've got my writing here, I've got Mom's writing, but she just kind of drew something out. This was just something she took a picture of, and it said, Judith has the book of log cabin paper piecing with curvy log cabin on it. So this is how she would play with. And then I can see her thought process. Then she was also thinking about, did she want to do it like that? And then she has a picture. Her friend Barbara had given her a bunch of fabrics. These were all fabrics in here that are in there. And then she has another one. So she was just going to make it a wall hanging. And then this was another idea. See, so all these things. And I have her notes all over stuff. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to show it. And then I'll tell about it. So this is my mom. And I bet she thought of my sister Ginger, her and I. So I had notes from Mom all over the place. And she had, so it was a trip that I took in, in 2009, she was losing her memory and in dementia, and she could still sew, but she had lost the ability to paper piece because it is kind of backwards. So it was just not what she was able to do. So she could do other quilting, but I remember on a phone conversation with her, she was saying, I can't do it anymore, and I'll give it on to you or Ginger. And then I said, oh, I'd love to do it, Mom, because that would be awesome. And so she had forgotten about it when we took a trip that summer. And so the next year she gave that to me. And I said, I'd love that. And so when I came home, I'd had a conversation with my dad when I called to talk to my mom. And he said, this isn't a good day. She's trying to quilt and it's not going well. And so I just was talking to my dad. So I knew that day that she was trying to do it and she couldn't. And then the visits were getting where it was more evident that her memory was declining, which is incredibly hard to experience. And so when I came home from that trip, I had all these blocks. They were all separate. They were just blocks all together. I'm sorry, I don't know how to edit, and I work on call. So that's how I get my work. So they were all separate, and I am a process griever. So I grieve and process through it. And that's where Grief Share is amazing, an organization that I talk about a lot. So I took all those pieces, and here's two more. So I took all these pieces that she had worked on, and then I made some of my own, but you could tell. I could tell she was having trouble. So I did not want to throw those away. These were ones that Mom did. And I had to think about it. I thought, do I want to redo them? And I thought, yeah, I do. I want to redo them. And so I took some of them apart, put them back together. And I bawled as I was doing it. It was a grieving experience, but I still remember. And I would tell the kids were younger, and I would tell them, I got to work through this. So they would be with my husband, and I worked through this. So I have a lot of memories of that remembered grief, but I have a lot of memories of that joy of Mom teaching me how to quilt, and the joy of knowing that she and Judith and a lot of her other friends had fun. They lived, they enjoyed, they did that. So it's a mix. It is a mix of emotions. And that's probably a big reason why this has been in a box since 2010. Because even though I worked on it to get it to this size, it is not finished. But it makes a nice wall hanging. And I until I made the log cabin one, that has been hanging in my sewing room. All that to say, I decided I could have Mom had enough pieces of this foundation stuff to make this size. And I could have just left it, but I thought, no, I want a bed quilt. Mom had a lot of king size bed quilts, and I thought, I want a bed quilt. So I figured out with the math how many more I would need of those blocks to finish a king size bed quilt. So last night I was looking at it. I thought I should have just left it that size and let it be, and I could still do it, but I'm going to show you why I'm not going to do it, because I bought a lot of these, and these were $10 a package. I don't know how many. I think I had to buy 6, so I've invested $60. This is how you can still get it now. Foundation by the yard, uneven log pattern by Benertex. So even though I probably bought these 10, oh, I have the receipt. I bought these quite a while ago. They're still available. At the time they were, oh, actually $7.95. I don't even have I have the date on here. Yeah, 2013. I have those. I'm going to make that into a bed-size quilt. And it will be warmer because you are leaving this there. So I will use a thin batting because that adds to the warmth of it. The other reason I'm going to make it larger is because I have this whole box with a lot of fabrics that my mom had specifically chosen for that quilt. And that's another reason why I want to do it. And then here's another reason. Oh my gosh. I forgot Riley was... I forgot. I'm sorry, babe. Poor Riley. Oh. I just threw that on the couch. I forgot Riley was there. He's so small. He just melds in. So he is a fast mover because he matches the color of our floor. And he's small. Whenever he hears something, he moves. So he had been, I was going to say dead asleep. He had been asleep, and then boom, he woke up quick. Poor baby. I'll remember you're there. All right, back he goes. Okay, here's the other reason I'm going to make it, because I did this. So when I was preparing that and I knew I was going to make it bigger, those are some of the strips. And these are the others. So that's how I figured out this is a really good way, because this fits. It's dusty, but this fits perfectly. So even though you can see it squishes it down, yeah, they're smashed, but they're going to get ironed anyway. So these are for the narrower strips, and then I have some for the wider strips. Some of these are Mom's fabrics, some of these are my fabrics. But that's why I need to make that whole king size one, because I have all these fabrics that are prepared, and I can use them for that, and many other. I've used them for a lot of other quilts as well. And then when I have leftover strips that are about 1.5 or 2.5, I do throw them in there. So I am a little organized. But I was also thinking I am going to have a lot of fabrics left over, and every morning I've been choosing a different pattern book with my coffee to come either outside in the garden or in my room and look through a pattern book. And I found this morning. So this is from, my friend gave this to me for my birthday, Simple Friendships 2. So this is from the Kim Deal, Joe Morton, two of my favorite designers. And look at that. So look at the borders. So I can use those strips and I can make a border with all the extra, because I thought, wow, I've already got those organized. What can I do with those? So there we go. The other thing, because I have so many projects going over a long period of time, all the centers are the same fabric. And so I knew myself at the time, even when I was new to quilting, and I put this whole piece of fabric, there's enough left, it's like 3/8 of a yard. I put this whole piece of fabric in that box, which is very good because I knew myself and that I would use that for something else, because I would not have remembered that that was it. So that's why I do like keeping fabrics all together. Pros and cons of keeping it all in plastic boxes, but I've always done that, and that's the way I'm doing it now. I was going to say I always will. I have no idea if I always will. So that's the story with that one. Now, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to turn you now, and I will be progressing on that quilt. The other reason I wanted to put it up, because I think the log cabin, that log cabin quilt that I usually have in that spot is one of my favorites. I have many, one of my favorites. But I really do like that, and I thought, oh, do I want to take it down? I thought, yeah, because I want this up, and I put it up mostly so I would remember to keep in mind to remember to finish it. But then I put it up and I thought, that is gorgeous. And that's why last night I was thinking, it's gorgeous exactly the way that is. And really, I should just let it be. But that's why I thought through, do I want to? I can do another one like that and have it just be that size in other colors. So it is gorgeous, and I will leave that up for a while. So here's the story. Everything in my room has a story, and many of the things are from Mom. I'm going to turn you over even more because I know you probably saw that the whole time. So this is an old wash tin. It used to have 2 handles, but my parents went camping even after we moved out. We always had a tent trailer, and then they bought a new tent trailer. I even remember going to the Coleman place when they bought that original tent trailer when we were kids. That was dishwashing. We used that tin or that enamel thing from when we were kids until they stopped camping. And then I told my dad, I want that. And so I got it. So that's what that is. And I've had it in different places, and that's why a handle is missing, because I used to use it for gardening, and then it broke off. So now it's hanging on the wall, and I love it. So that's the story behind that one. Okay, here we go. This is Ginger, my sister's version of the Valentine quilt. So if you go contrast it, let me grab mine. So if you contrast it with mine, you can see my colors are lighter. She went with a darker palette. I went with a lighter palette. Mine is longer and wider. I think hers is probably made to size, but I wanted you to see not just that Ginger and I did a quilt. Hers was more according to the pattern. She only changed a few things. This is her husband and her. These are her 3 animals. So she did, I don't think it called for paw prints. This is her. She had 2 Malamutes and an amazing, beautiful, large cat named Hans. So Hans, Chloe, no, Max, Hans, Chloe. So these are her fur babies. But beautiful quilt, and she's an amazing machine quilter. So I'll leave this here as I close out. So I love to hand quilt. My sister, artist, she does amazing machine quilting. So I'll post that more on Instagram. I've been absent from Instagram for a while. I just got overwhelmed with life, and I shared about that more on FlossTube, but I had a lot of things going on the last 3 weeks. It just got very busy with many different things and awesome things. So there's that. I have a playlist on my channel. So I have my floss tubes, I have my quilting. Now I'm adding quilt videos by others for some different things. Like I was sharing about a rag quilt, and I thought, I'm not going to do a tutorial, but I have found several. So I'm trying to add things to those playlists. I have project bags. I have some of my favorite music. Music has been very, very important to me recently, especially the old hymns. And I shared on my floss tube about the hymn, I Need Thee Every Hour. And I found a neat one by somebody Ortega, who was more out during the 80s, but beautiful. And then now, because I was sharing, today, it's the middle of the week today. We just had Palm Sunday. We will be approaching Good Friday this week, and then Resurrection Day. So as a believer in Jesus Christ, it's very important to me. This is Christmas was the start when Christ came to earth, and then this week is like the circle of He came, He lived, He gave His life, He rose again. And so I put on there, I know many people follow my pastor, Jack Hibbs, and I just thought, oh, I just need to put a playlist. So I put his, the Sunday service really meant a lot to me. I learned and Jack was sharing his passion, his Palm Sunday is like he was very passionate. And he shared a lot of history. That was really neat to really be able to have the depth of understanding about the people that laid down, it's Palm Sunday because they cut down palm branches, but they also laid down their cloak and what that meant. And so it was awesome. So I have a playlist now of my church because people are enjoying following my pastor because I value him so much and I love what he shares. So I have a playlist for that. But this is where I also want to share what I call the good stuff. And this is my faith in action and what my Jesus means to me. So this being the week, the Passion Week. And also I am already I'm always transparent, but I'm feeling kind of more transparent this week because of the value, the passion that I generally don't even call it Easter, because Easter kind of has different meanings than Good Friday and Resurrection Day. So Sunday, Resurrection Day, that is the part that shows the power of Jesus. So not just Jesus on the cross. Those are all parts of it. Jesus on the cross, he laid down. He gave his life for us. And I have a few verses to share about that. He gave his life willingly. But that was not the end. If that was the end of the story, the value was that he rose again. He is God. God and Jesus, the same. The Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity. And so that Resurrection Day. And in our family, we have a tradition, and I was shown how to make something called resurrection rolls 20 years ago. And I have been practicing, and they've got sugar in them. So that's probably also why I'm a little off. But I really want to do a video where I can show you what my friend showed me 20 years ago. We make those every year, no matter the age of our kids. We make those. And so as I brought those out of the oven the other day, my husband said, what you doing? And I said, I started singing the hymn, He arose, He arose. I'm a horrible singer, but Jesus doesn't care. He loves my voice. So I do want to do a video on that, and it will be that will be its own thing. So in keeping with all that, this is for Christians, for Christ followers, for believers, whatever we call us, those who love Jesus and are saved by his grace. This is our week. There's just like Mom's quilt, there is joy, there is pain, there's sorrow that my sin put Jesus on the cross. There's all of that, but the value that he loved me so much that he gave his life for me and for you, but we must accept. It's huge. And so in that, this is it. So if you're still here with me, it's because you're okay with all this. I have some verses that I want to share. And so there's three sections. So one, and there, there's you can go on forever. This whole book, my Bible, is everything about these verses. So these are just a few. Here we go. Just the scraps, like a scrappy quilt. These are just some of them. John 16:4. Jesus said to them, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I was trying to find the sermon about, it's on our church's website, Calvary Chapel. I think it's calvarychapel.org or .net, on November 15th. And I shared this in another quilting video. Dr. Frank Turek, Turek, came to our church and shared about how Jesus can make that claim. It was amazing, fascinating, and I even shared about that on that quilting video where I showed my stash. And I tried to find that to link it, and hopefully I can do that. That's a big claim. How does he make that claim? How is that the truth? He shares about it for an hour. And then 1 John 3:16. So not John 3:16, but 1 John 3:16. By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us, and we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And wouldn't that solve so many problems in the world if we each knew what love was, because we knew that our Jesus gave his life for us. that if we believe in him, we are saved. And that's what I'm going to share next. But also that we took that same depth of sacrifice and loved each other like that. There you go. Solution to the problem. Okay, so now Ephesians 2, 4 through 10. Lori, Stitching in the Valley. Look at this. I use that for my bookmark. Okay, so what did I say? Ephesians 2, 4 through 10. This is a chunk, but you can see this is a well-loved part of my Bible. I have a study Bible, so it's Nelson's Study Bible. So if I don't understand something in here, I can get more information about it there. Great reference. But God, who is rich in mercy, because of his great love with which he loved us. Valentine's Day. It makes me think of that. Even when we were dead in our trespasses, which is sin. Sin is termed as missing the mark. This is what sets the mark. When we miss what God sets as the mark, that's sin. It's called trespasses. Even though we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised up together, and made us sit together in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace in his kindness towards us in Jesus Christ, or actually in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, for good works, which God prepared for us beforehand that we should walk in them. So I have marked, so it says saved for good works, not by good works. So nothing we can do good enough to save us, to be with heaven, to be with, this means so much. And also I know I need to cut these off after an hour because I lose the ability to talk. But the reason I will get to see Mom in heaven is because she was saved by grace. She taught me as a child to love my Jesus. And I asked him into my heart when I was a little girl. I don't remember the date. And it used to bother me. But I remember at a Christian camp I went to, I kept asking because it was like, I can't remember the date. So is that real? And I kept asking Jesus into my heart again and again. And I remember I went to a counselor at church camp one time. And they said, you don't need to keep doing that. You did it. If you're worried about it, you already did it. And it just helped at that time because I know he is in my heart. I don't have to know the exact date. I know he's there because I talk to him all the time. And I know it's nothing that I could do that's good enough because our sin separated us. There's so many samplers for cross stitches that are done with Adam and Eve, and that's where the sin came in. But now I just want to end this because it is hard because I am tired. And I have such a passion to make sure it's clear and concise. But I know I pray before I do these videos. And I know it's just me talking. But I can just plant that seed. So if you're not sure about all this, if you're not sure, is there really a Jesus? Is there really a God? And is Jesus the same as God? And all this, just ask him. He hears your thoughts. He knows you. He has a plan for you. He has a purpose. He wants you with him in heaven. And the only way to get to heaven is through Jesus Christ. So ask him and he'll tell you. I'm going to close this out because I am like emotionally spent. But I like to do these even though I get teary and vulnerable because I love you guys. Even though I don't, I'm talking to my camera. I get the comments and that's how I know you're there. And that's how I know I just got a comment this morning of someone that said, thank you for sharing about your pastor. I watched the last service and now I can learn about the Lord. That's the real reason I do these. Even though I won't ever be consistent, that's the real reason. I have a passion for my stitching, a passion for all this, passion for a lot of things. But it's my passion for the Lord that makes me want to keep doing these and makes me realize the value of doing these. So There you go. Happy Resurrection Day. He arose. He arose. Hallelujah. Christ arose.